My name's Chris Kiriakou. Just at the start of this video, we would like to just put into context that we hope that this hasn't been done in any way to promote any particular person. It's not done out of ego. It's done really, the intention has been that people can talk about their experiences with Shri Mataji, and in the sense of being able to reflect back to those who haven't had the opportunity, some of her qualities and what it actually was like, because we have all the videos and we have a lot of the recordings of the formal events, but I think many people want to know from an individual perspective what it felt like. What was it like, in the human heart and your own personal experiences to be in her presence? And
I think it was just in the experience, just in the joy of being around Mother, just hanging off her every word, the sound of her voice, everything that she did, the way that she, looking back now, the way she never made us feel overawed by her, how she was really the loving mother, how she was so much in charge, so much in command of everything that was going on, every aspect of what was happening. You knew that she was running the show in such a seemingly a mundane sort of way, but it was all happening, falling into place. The way she used to have her attention on every aspect of what we were doing on that tour, how the food was very much, every menu was designated by her. She always says, who can dominate you? I've made you aware of the fact that you're the Spirit, and if you know you're the Spirit, who can dominate the Spirit? So when people used to complain about being dominated, she would be puzzled. I remember a talk in England where somebody said to her, Shri Mataji, what can we do about people who use their proximity to you as power over others? And I don't know whether that was the exact words, but that was the message, and she was quite bewildered by the question. From her perspective, there was nobody. And her answer was, if you put an agent between me and you, what can I do?
Well, my name is Michael Fogarty. I'm 76 years old. I came to Sahaja Yoga in July of 1980 when I was 44. So we were amongst the first people in the Sahaj collective in Australia, which started in Sydney. He was a chiropractor, and he, in the meantime between us first meeting him, or Marilyn first meeting him there, had gone to India and met Shri Mataji together with another friend of his, and Shri Mataji commissioned them to come back and start Sahaj in Australia. So he said on that evening, this is not the answer for you, I found the truth, come with me. We've met this most extraordinary divine person in India, and so we did, in which this group of people were sitting around this little coal fireplace in this front room in a small Federation cottage in Dalhousie Street in Haberfield, and there was something very special about that group of people. Immediately I could feel that these people had a special sort of affinity, it seemed, with each other. Nevertheless, just being there was a gorgeous experience. It was such a contrast from the sort of the dryness, the aridity of the environment. That the dream consisted of these people travelling on this dirt road in India, and we rose up to the crest. The road rose up to a crest, and then we looked out over this beautiful countryside. It was like we were sort of, who was it, Martin Luther King, I went to the mountain, I looked out over the land. It was that feeling that here was the promised land. This was our destination spread out before us. Remember, this group of people had organised, I think at Shri Mataji's request, that we would go and be with her, because we hadn't met her in person, except for these two people who'd come back to start the Sahaj in Australia. We would go and meet her in India, in Maharashtra in India. And
Sarah Frankham And I came to Sahaja in 1980, February the 29th, which I think is quite symbolic, because I finally, she took her hair out of the bun and she threw her hair back and she sat on the, I think it was a throne there that they put her, because Cersei, and we did puja to her. And yeah, it was, and after the puja we went to her feet, and I remember as we were walking up to her, we were in twos going up, and she said, she was talking to the Indians up there, and she's saying, see the innocence, see the innocence. It's beautiful, the land of Shri Ganesha. I'd been to Sunday school, and we'd had the story of Palm Sunday, and I had this incredible feeling, I've been there, I was there, I know I was there. So when we were in India, and Shri Mataji was there, it was just so biblical. That's what it was. Yeah, it was. And she said to us, as Philip said, you think this is the first time you've been with me, but you've been with me lifetime after lifetime. And she said that first night that we met her. And another time we were sitting on it, somebody brought a chair out and a lamp, and she was sitting under the light, and we were all sitting at her feet. And there again, it was so biblical, you know. Just felt that you'd always sat at her feet. That's where you'd always been, and that was, you know, coming into the dormitory and telling you that you should be wearing your clothes, because you know how to dress, and the mire is very thick around Shri Mataji. And I think you were asking earlier about people in the future. In lots of ways, it's harder to recognise an incarnation when they're on the earth. I mean, and straight away she's saying, "Oh, could you help me unpack my suitcase now? Which sari shall I wear for puja now? Do you think this one's better, or shall I wear this one?" And straight away, I mean, you have to really, you could say, "Oh, Shri Mataji, I think that one's better," but you know, it's so easy to get sucked into it. You'd have to, because she makes you feel so at home, so like she is your mother, your physical mother as well as your spiritual mother. We had a puja here. We had the Shri Ganesha puja here, which was
Famous one.
famous one. That was before it started. Shri Mataji took a shower in the well. This has all changed, but Shri Mataji's room has stayed, and next to it was the shower. And she called a few of us in, and she prepared a paste, and she asked us to rub it into her, like, you know, we do the haldi ceremony with ladies, and we rubbed it into her. And then she got the haldi and she scraped it off, whatever the paste, she scraped it off, and she fashioned this tiny little Shri Ganesha. And she said, "This is how Shri Parvati made Shri Ganesha." And that was the morning of that Ganesha puja. And that beautiful photograph that is taken with the brass, that brass wasn't actually around Shri Mataji, it was hanging on the wall up there. And she said, at the end of the puja, she said, "Oh, could you pass me that?" And I wanted here, and she set that up. And then she asked Barbara Bonham to take the photograph, because she'd told Barbara before she wasn't to take any photographs. And she said, "Now you can take this one." So, and she took that one. That was the official Ganesha puja.
Coming to Sahaja Yoga, my name was Snow. I was later named Vishnu by Her Holiness. My lovely wife and I first met Her Holiness in person in Mumbai in 1980, along with a small number of her children from Australia and the UK, and mother when she entered a hall with the CP as Mrs. Srivastava, giving the illusion of looking like a normal human being. After pleasant, shook her hair loose and seemed to increase in size. With a tremendous surge of power and vibration, she became the all-powerful Devi, and at the same time a comforting, loving mother. We were invited to place our hands under and our ajnayas resting on top of her lotus feet, with a number of kundalinis seen strongly pulsating through yogi's clothing, clearing their way to Sahasrara. It was difficult to comprehend our good fortune and our closeness and time spent with our mother as she talked to us all individually. Many believe that our finding mother and our spirit would be the end of our journey as we dissolved into her being, with some leaving behind homes, jobs and other attachments, not intending to return. Such was the state of bliss she gave us. When someone asked, "What will we do now, Mother?" we were a little surprised when she said, Now that we have realised our spirit, we must all return to our countries, be her family, become our own gurus with the knowledge and techniques of Sahaja Yoga, stay in Sahasrara with her, and share her great gift with everyone, and reach all the seekers, striving for their connection to the divine, and bring them to her. The message Mother gave us in those early days still apply now and will apply into the future.
Sahaja, I'm from India. I've been in Australia for the last 27 years. Chopped this wood at this mountain. I went with my young brother, and I had this massive, huge trees together. So I chopped one of the tree, and I wanted to push that tree down onto the slope. So I just tried to push it, but somehow the branches got stuck together, and both tree got sort of mixed up together, and my finger was caught between the two trees. Because I couldn't get my hands away. If tree fall, I would have just got hurt with the falling tree. So I was completely panicked, and the only thing I could think of is just to actually cut my finger. I had a sickle that time. I thought that's the only way I could do it, and I screamed, take Shri Mataji's name. For some reason, because I had this realization so I just thought, and by this spontaneously and from my heart, I started to scream and taking her name. I didn't even know her name. I just knew Shri Mataji. I said, come and save me because I'm really in a fix here. And as soon as I started to scream, you could see the big wind started gushing through. And I could my brother also could hear this tinkling of bangles. You couldn't see, but you could hear it. And I felt a hand, invisible hand, and I just used to pull my finger away from the tree. And my brother and me, we just sat there and could not believe what he had seen and what I actually felt. And we just went very quiet and went home. And after that, I realized that she really saved me. And she did. And that's how I got my realization. Well, that's my story.
Yeah, my name is Catherine Bevan. Of course I wanted to meet her. That was the first opportunity to meet her. So I hopped on a plane and went across to Perth, and we waited at the airport. And as soon as I saw her, she put her head down, and I felt like coming out of her head was a spiral. Just like that, like the universe was in her head. We stayed at Pitchagana, and then a lot of the yogis were staying there in the hangar, and she stayed down in this lovely little cottage by the lake. It's a big cloud around the cottage, but it was completely clear over the cottage. It's like the cloud formations were just around the cottage, and it was completely clear. And I sort of wandered down to the cottage and went to sit on the veranda to have a meditation, and at that moment I could see there were a few yogis inside on the floor sleeping. And at that moment Shri Mataji got up and she came out in a sari. Came out and she sat on the porch, and she was looking back in towards us. And the background just was a beautiful setting against the lake. And she had her hair down. She just sat there with one leg up, and she just started talking to us. And then she started, and it was a lovely morning. And then all of a sudden looked around, there were everybody was there. So it was a beautiful time. It was wonderful to see her. And the other thing she said was that, she said, these people around me, she said, they think that they're like gods, who are close to me all the time. But she said, there's people on the other side of the world who've never met me, but they're so close to me. So it sort of reinforced to me that you don't actually have to be near Shri Mataji to be close. Closeness to her is not a physical presence. The closeness to her is what's inside. So
my name is Philip Frankham. I was born in Tasmania in 1950. That whatever I said, she always knew anyway. I watched her work with people incredibly closely, and it was just constant. And if human beings are not emancipated, it's not her fault. It's as simple as that. and the continual care she gave to people from the basic right through to the deepest things. Wherever she went, she was constantly there doing those things. And also not being backward in telling us as Westerners that don't be like that, you should be like this, and also her whole incarnation was to change things, and it was constantly doing that, constantly. In the beginning in Australia, a lot of people gave up their lives and whatever to establish Sahaja Yoga. Of course, who we had in front of us, to me there was never a question, even though, whatever, went with it. And they were devoted. I feel that she had to have those people to establish, and she picked. She knows where we're from and what we're doing and all that. So she picked people who would do it.
Moments of personal sacrifice, did you ever doubt that what you were doing was the right thing?
Never. The thing is that I felt right from the start that she is who she is, and that's it. And it was never, I didn't feel like there was sacrifice at all, because of the joy of what she'd given us. You know, there were ups and downs and all that, and that happens all the time. But every day you could go back to it. That's the beautiful thing about Sahaja Yoga. Whatever's happening, you can go back always to her, and she'll take you back again. Whatever.
Most of your life for a long period of time, where many people have had doubts and eventually left. In your own spiritual experience, you've never had those challenges to your faith?
No. I know who she is. And that's from the very beginning. Simple as that. I want to grow, and this is the secret, is to meditate so that they can know. That's the movement through. And even with the recognition of her early, we still have to do that to maintain it.
My name is Bina Capodistris, to Vaitarna for doing the program, the marriages there, and that's how I got my realization there.
How?
I was 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. I knew straight away because I wanted to meet the God, and when I see her face all blooming, and she looked very different to the other people, like normal person. She did look like a normal person, So that's why I thought, for sure, the God is just like us, but a bit different. And that's what it is. We always look forward to when Shri Mataji come to Vaitarna, and we can be part of it, doing something, and meet the God, talk to God, and do the puja to God. Poster goes up, and all the things getting ready, all the rooms getting ready, and they go, wow, Shri Mataji's coming, let's, now 5 days is holiday, let's go and enjoy with the God especially, not just like some normal person. Sometimes when I like talking to my mom at home, and then Shri Mataji will pat my back and she'll say, what you talking? And then I say, oh, I'm with Shri Mataji. So when she giving her love and talking, and you just, that moment, you forget, that minute with the God, you think of with your mother, she really talk like, giving love and support, and in every way, doesn't matter whichever way you ask her, and she tell you all about it. And then
my name is Bill Brander. I was born in Sydney, Australia. We've travelled from Australia to India, in those days at least, I don't know about now. When you arrive in India, it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night over there. And at this time they were running, there was a program, Mother's Life program in Bombay, a theatre. And we went to this theatre, and I can't remember how many Aussies there were, there might have been 25 or so. And we were put up in the back, in the high seats at the back where you can look down on the rest of the world. And the program was still going on. And somebody went down to tell Shri Mataji that the Australians had arrived. And she sent the opportunity, the invitation to us to go to her feet after. And for those who don't know, in those days we could go individually because there weren't that many of us. At times when she chose, we could take darshan at her feet. And I couldn't get there quick enough. And when I went to her feet, there was this hurricane, right, of vibrations just shot up the back, up my spine. It was just like rigid power. And it stayed like that overnight and into the next day. It was a tremendous experience. And no one's going to convince me that Shri Mata's not gone after that. It was just, you know, and she's told me later, you know, you've got such a strong desire.
Marilyn Fogarty. And, we went to all sorts of places to find it and ended up in Sahaja. I just knew. I knew that it was good. I knew we had to go to India. I forced the family to go. I just knew that we had to do this. Just intuitive. Yeah. No, I always knew it was right from the beginning. There wasn't a moment where the light came on. It just, we gradually found out who she was.
The collective, some people speak of it as a challenging time. How was it for you?
I thought it was great.
Breeze through those early years where some perhaps...
I know.
struggling.
The first time I saw Shri Mataji, the first time we met Shri Mataji in India, in Mumbai, we all went up to her individually. And every person, she gave a little sentence like, you should do this or you should do that, or you know, something like that. And she said to me, it's going to be difficult, but you'll make it. And I thought, I wonder what she means, because I'm having a great time. It was such fun. But the difficult times came later. Things that she said, we soon found out, weren't always going to happen tomorrow or next year. It could be 10 years away. So we learned to. What she said was true, that it didn't always happen immediately. So it got harder further on. We never lost faith in Shri Mataji. Never. We didn't doubt Shri Mataji. We just pressed on.
For about 33 years, and I believe for around 32 of those years you live collectively. I don't believe there are many people that can make that.
I think it's 31. I think there were many problems. I've enjoyed living collectively enormously.
Many
I don't think I've actually had a toe-to-toe argument at any time during that bed at night. I've enjoyed eating and drinking and sharing life with other Sahaja yogis.
Having dealt with those issues from the other side, I can assure you your experience is unique. So I'm asking for the secret of your success. How have you been able to enjoy, because you're living with people of all types of backgrounds, understandings, level of spiritual maturity, level of awareness, everyone's thrown together in this great melting pot, and it's never an easy journey. Somehow you've been able to always make that mixture work well.
You know, like I just quietly withdraw and sit in a corner and put my attention on the divinity.
A friend of mine who I lived with once described ashram life as both the best of times and the worst of times. in his life?
Well, I'm lucky. I must have got the best of times.
For 30 years.
You say it as if it's like something that is unbelievable.
I've lived
but
it. I've lived it.
But it's not, Chris. It's not. I really do have I have enjoyed and am enjoying that life enormously.
Also unique in all the people I've spoken to, you've lived with, no one has ever had a bad word to say about you, and that's also quite a unique position to be in the collective where you're universally loved and respected.
Well, I suppose I'm capable of detaching when the detachment is needed.
Through Page, I'm from Sydney. It was in 1981 when I heard about Shri Mataji coming to Australia. I got to wash Mother's feet first up without having a clue as to the significance. So she was very insistent that I went under her heel several times, and every now and then she went, "Ha!" And then that was the very first thing that I had anything to do. So it was also tactile. It was astonishing not knowing the significance of what you were doing and feeling as if you were touching the rock of ages when you went under her feet.
Do you still...
Asking, now, how do you feel? And I was absolutely blank, and I didn't know how to answer, and I thought, this is rude, should I make up something? Or, I went totally thoughtless during the episode, and it was so hard to answer her questions. You know who Shri Mataji is, as much as a meek human can acknowledge this, then yes, you want to see the world cleared of all the chaos. You know, progress in Sahaja is a little like walking up a mountain. You have to make sort of a little bit of effort to walk, and you keep walking and you keep walking, you stop for a little while and you look down and you say, oh, yes, that's where I was. Yeah, I've come a little way, and so on, and the progress keeps going. How would I have ever survived without Sahaja? Because I was so aware that I was a very blessed person. What the hell was this all for, you know? But it all gelled, so one could become one of Mother's instruments. That it was Mother's blessing retrospectively. I'm sure that I was being looked after from a very, very early age, because I did go through a few hardships.
In nature, you mentioned that they came to you quite early in your experience. How's that been a strength in your life?
Well, Chris, it just makes you not frightened of anything, doesn't it? It's that the more I knew, the little I really knew. So with Sahaja and my progression, let's hope it's progression, in Sahaja, the more I am aware and hopefully deepen, the more I realise that there's a long way to go yet. My greatest joy would be many times when I just am totally aware of the greatness of the cosmos and therefore of the creator, creatrix.
In having a sense of that there was something, an experience that was coming that would be very special, and that was something to look forward to. And that sensation would come to me at various times when I was in the middle of things that I thought were enjoyable. And in a way, it made things I was doing less enjoyable, because I realised that those things I was doing wasn't giving me that sort of special feeling that I had some sort of intuition about. The program was those days when you could go up and you could see Shri Mataji at the end of the program. So I lined up with everybody, and I went up on the stage, and Shri Mataji looked at me, and then you put your hands in her lap, and we did, so I put my hands down, and then she looked at me, and then she actually put her hand on my top of my head, and she was looking quite concerned at me and looking sort of through me rather than at me, and she was sort of meditating, and then all she went, ah, and then I just felt this like a cool flood coming to the top of my head, and I just knew at that moment that this had been something, it wasn't just a lecture or a talk, something had really happened. So that was really the the turning point for me, because at that moment I couldn't really deny that this had happened. You're seeing Shri Mataji every day, and you're seeing Shri Mataji in an audience of maybe 100 people. So you're sitting in front of her with small numbers of people, and she would be talking to you about, you know, things that had happened, but you just felt a closeness to her physically, and you felt that relationship to her as, you know, as a mother. You felt that the guru, yes, but you started to develop that love for her, you know, in the personal sense. And
my name is John Smiley. I came to Sahaja Yoga in 1984. Probably one of the best experiences of my life here was actually during the Holi celebration in 2006. And I don't know, I've had many great experiences in Sahaja Yoga, but I don't know that I would say any night has ever surpassed that night. It was such a, I remember the room, and Shri Mataji was sitting there with her head down and her eyes closed. And as I looked at her, I felt I have never seen her look in such deep meditation before. It was so powerful. And yet at the same time, there was joy absolutely bubbling. And I was sort of thinking, isn't that funny? She is impassive on her face. There's no smile there. There's no physical expression of joy there. And yet I'm feeling this incredible joy. And it just proved that it goes totally beyond the physical. It might just start on a level, and it just got better and better and better. And yeah, that was one of the great nights that night. That whole tour of 2006 here was like paradise on earth. I think anybody who was here at Burwood at that time will never forget it. Impassive, like there was not much happening, but you felt so much love pouring, so much vibrations. And that night we went for Sri Ganesha Puja in Cabela, and the first night, the Friday night, I was asked to present a gift to Shri Mataji. And as I was in the room, I'm going, what have I done to deserve this? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Like,
having a childhood can't be overstated. So I now appreciate, because I'm going to be a father soon, I can appreciate the difficulty my parents had in sending me, which I didn't think of my parents now and making that decision. I feel like it was the ultimate sacrifice of love, because I feel it's the best thing that could have happened to me. Because I mean, I loved Dharamshala, perspective. It gives you independence, but also because it was a Sahaj school, the fundamental values of Sahaj are upheld there, and part of that was let children have a childhood for as long as they can. So we're not, you know, when they meet a lot of the kids from Dharamshala, at what they think is their world wiseliness, because in a way we've seen a lot more of the world than most people have seen. I remember feeling, when I did high school here, I remember feeling suffocated by what I felt was really insular environment. So it's given me that. It's given me a lot of confidence coming into adulthood, you know. For me personally, I felt like it was the best decision my parents made for me. I loved it. Maybe not everyone loves Dharamshala, but I loved every minute of it. Yeah, to me, it's my home. All the matches were being done by Sahaja on vibrations, without necessarily Shri Mataji picking each and every one. And I know that was the case with my own wedding, where everyone felt vibrations. They brought up Shri Mataji for her blessings, and got the blessing. So I could say theoretically that Mother didn't pick my marriage, but for people who believe in God, I find it a stupid way to think, because if Mother doesn't personally put them together, I can't trust it. We're saying that we only believe in a God that's physically present, and that's not any level of faith in my view. And this of offering your name up is an act of faith. Maybe the biggest act of faith some of us will ever have to do in our lives. And I think it's appropriate that if you feel you're mature enough to get married, then maybe you need to also be mature enough, or at least mature enough to get married in Sahaja Yoga. maybe you also need to be mature enough to make a proper act of faith.
Made herself totally available to just about everybody. She gave everybody an enormous amount of time. And we used to look at the people some of the times and we think, why is Mother bothering with these people? Sometimes. But her compassion was enormous. I mean, it was more than our compassion, more than we could understand. But I think, you know, Mother was basically showing us that, you know, as human beings we have to have compassion for everyone without any kind of judgment. Got into the door, I got a phone call, and it was Mother was actually requesting all of those builders to come back to Brompton Square to have a small, quite a personal sort of puja. So there are, I guess, about 20 of us there. And as we got there, Shri Mataji was in the kitchen cooking curries for all of us, which we just thought was just outstanding. You know, it was phenomenal. There's Shri Mataji, whatever understanding we have of her, how great it was, they're cooking curries for us, just like a mother would for her family. However you would think of a mum, a perfect mother, that was Shri Mataji, a perfect mother, and more, much more, which you discover as you go, you know, as you grew up in Sahaja Yoga and the more time you spent with her. One day in a bedroom, and she was just talking to me about various things, and she just asked me to go into the bathroom where her vanity unit was, and said there's a small ball, about so big, no bigger than that, no bigger than the top of your thumb, but nice and round. Anyhow, and it was a colour of terracotta, so she asked me to go and get this, bring it to her. So I brought this small ball, this terracotta sort of putty-like ball to her, and gave it to her, and she said, "See, this is what I made Sri Ganesha out of."
You said you couldn't come, and we abandoned the idea, and then you got fired. You remember that? And you came home and said, "I haven't got a job anymore." And I said, "Fantastic, we can go to India." Don't you remember? And we booked to go to India, and they reinstated the job.
They reinstated the job.
Wow.
So,
how about that?
Isn't that interesting?
Wasn't that organised?
They sacked me.
They sacked you?
No, we've reconsidered after Christmas in December and went through possibly to the beginning of February. And I think in March, she and her husband, Sir C.P. Srivastava, came out to Australia to visit us. She said she wouldn't come until we had an ashram. And so, with great joy, we were able to, all those in charge were able to inform her that we had this place in Burwood, number 10 Clarence Street. Just beneath, or just alongside the Gladesville Bridge, and that's where people were invited to come and talk with Shri Mataji. And the occasion that I was there, they said, "This man's an architect." She said, "That's good, I'd like to talk to him." So we sat down on either side of a table out on the terrace of this house overlooking the Parramatta River, and for about 3 hours we went up and down and round about the business of redesigning the house in Brompton Square, which she was either living or intending to live. It started with a complete blank sheet of paper. It was an absolute mire. I had no idea what I was doing, but I do have drawings here that were drawn in her own fair hand. I can remember that we were invited, sort of groups at a time, to spend the night there. And I can remember that our family spent the night in this room with a couple of other people, I think. And I pull my ears to remember it, but I do remember Shri Mataji knocking on the door and putting her head round the door, asking us around about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, would we mind not chattering so much and go to sleep? So, we wouldn't do that again. We would not do that later on, but in our ignorance, we were so excited with this opportunity that we had to make alterations in the basement. They had a jackhammer down there. All the noise and the dust of a jackhammer, and Shri Mataji went down there and said, "No, that's not the way to do it." Took hold of the jackhammer and showed them how to do it. There was the Adi Shakti with the jackhammer. And moved from the place in Cambridge to this kitchen in this castle in Cabela, and that was my drawing board. And I actually on that occasion saw quite a lot of Shri Mataji, and it was just it was an absolute privilege, because I was set to work on designing a stair.
I'm Niranjana Satyashekhar.
Yes, and
I really looked inside myself to see what is it that I desire in my life. Do I want to be like the people that I see around me in the world? Or do I want to have what Sahaja Yoga has given to my parents and my uncles and aunties? In the school as a dorm auntie, I used to feel like that Shri Mataji was inspecting the dorms at night and things like that. I would sometimes feel like quite frightened actually, because I could feel her presence in the dorm in the night time as if she was with the children. I knew that she was sitting by each bedside, looking after each child as they slept. They all sat down right there in front of Shri Mataji's altar. There was nobody else, just my dorm. They sat there with their backs straight. And this complete silence entered the meditation room. And I was like, it was like there was a huge fan in front of me and I was being blasted with vibrations. Like I couldn't, like it was like, my whole face was being blown backwards. And each one of those boys looked like an ascetic who'd been in the Himalayas meditating for 100 years. They looked so old in a way, but so young and fresh, and their faces were shining. If you send your child to Dharamshala, I can guarantee that they are going to have some amazing, amazing spiritual experiences. If you want your child to be academically brilliant, or excel perhaps in music, or something like that, keep them home, there's no problem. You're going to get a wonderful education in a Western country, but you can get nothing like that experience anywhere else.
Wow. Position, because we were the security. So whenever the program ended, we were told all the Westerners had to rush to the stage, and we had to hold arms, and we'd form a barrier, and we'd let in people one at a once so they wouldn't rush Shri Mataji. So we had this fantastic opportunity where we were always security, but that meant we were a few feet away from Shri Mataji. I can remember we always used to rush because we wanted to work, and seeing her love and her compassion for these villages, each night thousands of people, and she would wait for hours sometimes to meet everybody and to give them their attention. That sense of her love and her compassion for humanity, because these were poor people from a village, and her compassion was no less for them than there were for people in the West. It's birthplace, and I can remember that particular night was a night, and then there was, as the crowd were coming up, the wind started to blow, and the pendle was sort of, the fabric of the pendle was moving, and Shri Mataji's hair was moving, and she looked up at the heavens, and she said, Hanuman's father has come to bless the program. And those moments, they never leave you because they're timeless. Time stops, and you know at that moment that you're with divinity, and that all of the divine realms and the beings all have their attention at that particular moment, and you have a sense that you're part of something much greater than yourself. On the 83 tour, at the end of the tour at Bordi, Shri Mataji said she wanted to meet each of the country groups before they returned to their own country. So through the day, each country was going to her bungalow, and then towards the afternoon, the sun was going down. The call was come that the Australians were to go down and meet the Shri Mataji. So we're staying on these guest houses on the beach under these beautiful acacia trees right on the beach, and we came out, and Shri Mataji was staying in a bungalow which was on the headland of the beach, about maybe half a kilometre away, so we could walk down the beach to the bungalow. And the protocol was the ladies would walk in front and the men would walk behind. And so we lined up, and as we started walking down towards Shri Mataji's bungalow, I had this vision of all the ladies that were walking in front, and they had the saris, and the wind was blowing the saris, and the men were in their white kurta. And at that moment, I had the realisation that intuition I'd had growing up, of that special moment, that this was the moment. That all of a sudden, that experience that I had expected to happen, I didn't know what was going to happen, but the realisation came that this was the time that you'd been dreaming about. So we walked down the beach, and we went into this little bungalow. Shri Mataji was sitting with her back to the sea, and the window was open, and the breeze was coming in, and she said, "Come in, my children, come and sit down." So we sat down, and then it was just one of those moments where Shri Mataji just said to everyone, please tell me what's your experience, what did you learn from the tour, what's your being, and she went through each person and she asked their name if she didn't know their name, and everyone was speaking about their personal experiences, and it was just that moment of reaffirming that Shri Mataji was both our God and our mother, and she knew us and loved us, and she wanted to know how we felt and what our experiences were. And I remember when my turn came, she asked me, so Chris, what did you get from the tour? And I just said, Shri Mataji, I know now that you're God, and I know now that you love me, and that I love you, and that's what my life will be. And she said, she sort of smiled and she said, yes, I know that you all love me very much, and I love you.
चलते 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 यूं ही कोई मिल गया था सारे राह चलते 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 यूं ही कोई सारे रात चलते थे सारी रात चलते चलते वही दम के रह गई है मेरी रात डलते 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 जो कहीं गई न मुझसे